Hello everyone, this is Marinol from the Brangal Trekker blog and Peak Explorations. Welcome to the first episode of the podcast series called On My Way from a Lawyer to a Mountain Nomad. I do want to note that the series hopes that this would actually be beneficial for the people who are listening, so I don't want this to be sort of just my journaling type thing. So I am gonna do my best to make sure that the episodes do help people in terms of the insight in the world of someone who's thinking about shifting career. So for this first episode, I think it's good idea to give you guys a background in terms of what made me decide in the first place to do this, because I've been practicing law for over 14 years now, and I obviously took time to get to become a lawyer, so there's a lot of years of studying. And I'm in my mid-career, and most of the people my age have families, are married or have partners and have kids. And in Washington DC, where I live, everyone, majority of them, is in that situation. So it is a bit of an unusual thing for someone like me in DC to want to do this, especially the fact that the area is not well known for outdoors, and I happen to just be thinking about being in the mountains all the time. But anyway, I could talk more about the obsession over mountains on another segment, but I do want to focus on sort of just the background of this podcast. When people ask me why I want to leave my practice, it's a hard question to answer, because it's not necessarily because I don't like my practice. I think I've been very lucky to actually have such a great practice and something that really challenged me over the years. But I think in time you realize interests do change, and change can be inevitable, and that's okay. It took me a while to accept the fact that things are shifting. And along the way, I've been doing a lot more traveling. I've been doing it as much as I can anyway to begin with while being a lawyer. So I think most of us do that in our daily lives, where we try to escape. And in the beginning, it was an escape because I have a very stressful job. But over time, especially when I discovered hiking, it became more of a place for me where I want to be full-time. And I eventually did a 1 year away and did experience more of the freedom and the idea of living somewhere else besides being in DC. So for this episode, actually, I do want to have more sort of a list of things of maybe why someone would want to leave a career. And I know some of them may apply to some of you guys and some don't. So this is just sort of to get a sense of, maybe if you're curious why someone would do this, then you heard it firsthand from someone who has really been thinking about this for a while. But the answer to the question of why I did this, it's really not an easy answer for me to give, because it actually is a process that took many years, even probably almost a decade. And all I did in the past decade or so is to travel. And I think the traveling part is the one that really opened me to it as well. But just to be specific, in terms of the list, I think one of the biggest things that really encouraged me to decide to do this is my job. And because I've been doing this for a long time, there's a tendency that you become bored with it. It becomes challenging. You do it over and over again. There's no more room for growth, and you feel like there's no creativity anymore. There's no expansion in your ability to use your skills. And of course, some of the people in my office go for becoming a judge or becoming a supervisor, and I just don't have that for a number of reasons. That sort of feeling of wanting to do that, which is something I will discuss later on. Also, one thing that's really became more evident is the fact that I lack the inspiration that I used to have, and that's a tough one because in my field, it's a very humane field where I deal with problems involving families and children. And for me to not be inspired is not such a good thing because it makes the work much harder for me. And I used to be inspired. It doesn't, I've definitely, it was an awesome time for me as a lawyer, especially when I was starting. But it's becoming more of a situation where it's very few and far between, the inspiration. And I think that I owe it to my work to be someone who is inspired to continue on. Because if eventually I lose all that inspiration, then I'm not really serving anybody. So I think with this process of trying to be doing something so different, you have to be honest with yourself and just be authentic, and just, it's okay to admit to the fact that this is not something that you like anymore, and you used to enjoy it, you used to love it, and used to be inspired, but not anymore, and that's fine. I think the next one I want to address is the fact that there is a pull to do something else as well. And I definitely experienced that. If I didn't have a pull, I'd probably end up stuck in my job, just unhappy and not having any kind of plan or ideas in my head. But because I discovered hiking about 12-15 years ago and did more of it over time, I realized it was something that really brought joy to my life. And it just was a build-up of a momentum. It started as day hiking, and then it expanded to backpacking, and then overseas, and then I started a trekking company, which leads me to the fact that one of the pools I have is my trekking company, or my social enterprise, Peak Explorations. I launched it just less than a year ago, but I've been guiding and organizing treks and trips for the past decade. And I just I formalized the passion into a trekking social enterprise. So the pull is that this is like a calling in a way, because it's something I really enjoy. And I have to quit my job to do it properly and to do it full time, and be able to invest completely in the company and be able to do a really good job in terms of running it. So the pull is definitely valid. It's basically becoming an entrepreneur and becoming my own boss and leaving the 9 to 5 to be someone who will run her own business. It is probably the hardest shift I did to the very end of this momentum of this process, because first of all, when you launch a business, you're seeing it to become a more real thing, and before it was just an idea in your head. And to make that shift, that's actually the scariest part. Is the biggest jump to it is when you finally realize, I think I'm gonna have to start a business, and then you just think about it for a long time, and then somehow the universe will just give you what you need, the tools you need to get there. I can't even begin to tell you how everything happened, but everything seemed to just have fallen into place. I didn't know anything about starting a blog or a website, and I always had this limiting belief of how can I do a business? I have no clue what to do with website stuff, and I don't even know how to initiate a business, where to go. And I think my advice for people who feel sort of threatened by the whole business idea, it's very doable. You just have to research and ask people around. There's so much help out there. People are just waiting for you to ask them a question, and they'll be so happy to help you out. And that's part of the experience I've had in the business world. At least in Washington, D.C., I can tell you right now that there's a lot of resources. They may not be the perfect ones that you're looking for, but there's so much that you can look into to get you started. And everyone is really happy to help, actually. I think that's one thing I realized about the business world. There's a lot of community happening to support you. So don't feel scared about it. I did, but all I did was take little steps. So don't think about the big stuff. Don't think about the entire set of tasks you gotta do, because it's gonna overwhelm you. Think about little things like, how do I start a business? Let's figure that out. Look online. What state do you want to establish in? And then you just kind of go from there, and you actually will be surprised how you actually get yourself to the next step, and then the next step comes in, and you do it, and then voila, you have a business, and you have all these products you're marketing. So I'm still learning a lot, because there are aspects I'm still rusty on, such as marketing. and the blog also is part of it. But because of the things I've done so far, I feel like the fear factor has almost dissipated at this point. And I have to say, since less than a year ago I started this, I've learned so much about different aspects of running a business: marketing, the financial part, the accounting, the product, just everything, like running it, managing, writing, and networking. It was amazing just to actually, I feel like I learned so much, and I went to school without really going to school, and I learned so many skills actually that I feel like, I can't even believe I can actually do a website from scratch, and then I've been able to do certain kind of editing on photos and podcast and recording, and even this is something that I would never have imagined being able to do. So I say all this because I wanted to just really reiterate the fact that don't feel discouraged with the idea of a business, because in a lot of ways it's so much fun, because it's your project, it's your baby, and it's, even though you're exhausted, you're just gonna love just working on it. And sometimes, I even forget to eat, and I just like sit in my pajamas and just go at it. But even if I'm like exhausted, I'm I could tell you that I'm really happy sitting there hours and hours writing and researching and doing all these things. So it's an awesome relationship, I think, with yourself and with the world, to have a business. And I would just say go for it. It's a big learning for you, and it's a good experience overall as part of growth. So I think those are like the main ones. I wanted to also touch base a little bit about other potential reasons. Maybe one of the reasons people want to do being a nomad, or doing something and shifting and just basically leaving their job, a career that they've been in for a while, is they don't want to be in the place they're living anymore. I live in Washington, D.C. It's an awesome city for arts and music and culture, definitely. But it's getting a little tiring. It's a very, very intense city. There's a lot of very highly educated people, very, very politically minded. Everyone's got an issue that they care about, and it's an awesome thing. But I think after a while, it's not something that I want to be in for like another 15-20 years. Especially when I love to be outdoors more so than being in the city as I get older. It's a very fast-paced culture. People are very driven. Establishing connections can be a challenge. That's another thing. It's also an expensive area, and so you may want to, like, I don't know if in terms of retirement whether this is something you'd want to like stay in, because personally I can't afford retiring in the DC area. It's one of the most expensive places right now. And then there's also traffic, which is very stressful for many of us here. You wouldn't think that it's not stressful, but it's something you deal with every day. The crowd in the metro breaking down, or if you're driving, the crazy traffic. Now, the other reasons I wanted to point out would have to do with just a miscellaneous list of things. One thing, of course, is for me is the love for the hiking adventure and just trekking. It's a hobby that turned into a passion, that turned into a calling. The feeling I get from doing it just gives me a lot of joy. I feel very aligned with myself. It's something that I feel like it's just pulling me to be there, and it's gotten to a point that I just have to follow that lead. There's also the love for traveling, which is the same sensation as the love for my hiking. So both hiking and traveling are the pull for me. I also am attracted by the fact that I know I would grow as a person if I quit my job and shift gears. I feel like sometimes you get used to your job and it gets too familiar and you get kind of complacent, and it's not something that I personally enjoy. I feel like this is you only live once, so if there is something that you really want to do and your job is not really making you feel happy anymore, I don't really see a reason why you should stay just for the sake of the money. Now, the other part is creativity. I think that like I said, creativity goes away after a while of working for years. I feel like I'm also drawn in by the fact that if I go away, it's going to require me a lot of creativity, and also running a business requires a lot of creativity. Of course, freedom is another reason why you would leave, because who'd want to deal with a supervisor for the rest of your life? I mean, I just never thought I would have a problem with it. Actually, years back, I thought, oh, what's the big deal? You're always going to have a boss. But in the end, now that I got a taste of how it's like running a business, I don't think I can ever go back after I leave to really working for someone. If anything, I'd just be a contractor in some way, but not to the point where it's like the government, where it's very bureaucratic, and because where I work is a government, so I really feel the levels, the hierarchy, and no matter how long you've been working there, it doesn't even matter. You're still going to be under someone, and they're going to still treat you the same as if you were never really there for 14 years. You've just been there for a year. So I think that just the morality is not the best, but some places I'm sure it's better. Also, just a feeling of being energized and inspired to do my own thing. Those are big things for me. And also just the pull of the direction. I think that's something I already mentioned. There is a pull for me to be out there versus being in my office where I am now. And also, I think one reason for me that makes it easy to transition and leave, I don't have any ties in DC. I don't have family members. My parents moved to Manila in the Philippines, so they're retired there. I have relatives there. I have an older brother and his family there. And the rest of my family, my other siblings, they're all spread apart or spread around. So I don't have a place in US where I feel like I have ties to. So that actually helps, because I don't have to feel like I'm connected to anything, and I can leave the country behind and not feel like I'm losing out on something. So those are like the major points, I believe, in terms, at least in my world. I'm sure there are a lot more, and I just, so that basically the plan for me is to basically leave next year and go full-time on my Peak Explorations trekking company and run it. So it's not like I'm just leaving because just for the sake of it. I'm hoping that the business will grow then, and I'll be financially okay to completely be going full-time, and that's really the plan. And with my Peak Exploration company, the plan is to live in the mountains. And when I say that, because my company runs in different countries where there are mountains, because of the trails we have to market trekking tours, I have the option to live in different places in various times, such as Nepal, Peru, Republic of Georgia. So in terms of just really the ultimate goal for me and what will make me happy is to actually be able to run Peak Exploration 100% and be able to just go to the different countries where I run my business, so I can work on my business and make sure that the product is great, and I would scout trails all over the world and market those trails as part of Peak Exploration's products. So it's actually, that would be very exciting for me, and that's the nomad part, is the fact that the business allows me to move around financially, hopefully one day, and if if I ever get tired and the business is running okay, I can also settle for one place and spend maybe 6 months in one country and 6 months in another country. So there's flexibility. But for now, I think because the business is new, I think the major thing that I need to do is to actually move around, so I can make sure I manage every country, every place that I run my business in. So that's the idea. And so anyways, I think that would be it for now. I just wanted to go over some of the reasons that came up in my world. I'm sure other people have other reasons why they would want to quit their career and do something totally off the beaten path, or something that's just not 9 to 5. And I'd love to hear from you guys, your thoughts, if you have any suggestions or ideas, or if you have your own reasons because you are thinking about leaving your 9 to 5 and doing something completely out of the 9 to 5 world. So I look forward to you guys commenting and sharing your thoughts and stories. And if you are on the road to getting to your goals of being a nomad, or just leaving your career, let me know. And until next time, I think the next topic would be something more about limiting beliefs and also how to deal with those concerns that we have about money and all that stuff. So I'm going to talk about that in terms of what I've figured out on my end that maybe can be helpful to you guys. Okay, talk to you guys later.